I was just wondering if you can comment on the issue of growth and how you assign value to it. I know it's a scary subject for most value investors, and they don't really like to assign too much value to that particular aspect. But Ben Graham and Warren Buffett both have said they actually prefer. They don't mind paying a higher PE for something they can see sustainably growing, as opposed to something that's growing slower and they don't see too much value there. So how do you, in your firm particular, assign value to growth?
Well, let's say we start off with the notion that you want to grow your capital. You don't care whether it's a growth company or not a growth company. You're not particularly concerned whether the earnings grow rapidly or they don't grow rapidly. You want your capital to grow. So that's the first thing. Would we pay up for a company that had clearly defined great prospects? Well, one of the problems is if a company has, clearly defined great prospects, you guys know it already. You're smart guys. You're in a top business school. You know it. So then the question is, how do you determine how much of those great prospects are already in the price of the stock? How do you make a determination as to what element the price of the stock, how much of that's because people like you folks have identified the great prospects, and we don't feel particularly comfortable paying up for those great prospects because we don't have a way to figure it out. We'd rather have a company that most of you guys say is, gee, this is terrible, and nobody wants to buy it, because then we can figure out what it's worth and where the shares are selling and so forth. We at Kahn Brothers have grown our capital over the years, and I would postulate we've taken lower risks than the S&P or Dow or a lot of others in the growth of our capital. So we want to grow our money, and we don't have to grow it necessarily in growth stocks. Everyone's enamored of growth stocks. I mean, how about growing your capital from non-growth stocks? That's all right, too.
When Warren Buffett made the decision to invest in a company like Coca-Cola, in the, taking Charlie Munger's advice, could you justify that kind of decision, or would you choose or try to stay away from those kind of situations?
I think Warren became a born-again Christian when he met Munger, the very successful lawyer who was his partner. And Munger persuaded him, and strangely, he yielded to the idea that he had such a wonderful stream of cash flowing from all of these insurance company premiums that Berkshire already owned. They looked for places to buy a name. And you can't argue with the idea that Coca-Cola was a big name and a good name. I think so was Gillette. I think he held on to him too long because he didn't know that ultimately Procter & Gamble was going to buy him, and he certainly didn't know that Coke was going to go through 2 or 3 vice presidents. So I think you're asking a question which really doesn't have any answer unless you speak about to set a specific company at a specific time.
Well, I would also say that we can't criticize what Warren has done, for sure. But he has a different approach, obviously very successful approach, than we have, or than a Walter Schloss, who's now retired, had, or Pete Condell has. So there are many people who are disciples of Ben who follow value investing with different nuances to it. And I would say that, to answer your question, we wouldn't buy Coke and we wouldn't buy Gillette.
You talk about some factors influencing your decision while choosing the company. I would like you to summarize, please, what are the 5 most important factors in the order of priority, qualitative or quantitative, that you pay attention while finding an undervalued company? Thank you.
The first thing I would say is it should either be obscure or out of favor. So it could be a big company which is not obscure, but is very much out of favor. That's the first thing. Second thing is we're very much balance sheet oriented. So we are not interested in companies that have excessively levered balance sheets. just doesn't make us comfortable. We like companies that have no debt or low debt. Third is we like management to be on the same page that we're on. So if there's any way that management can own a lot of stock, that's terrific.
Except on options.
If management can be somehow incented the way we're incented, that's a very important factor for us. We're not focused so much initially on the income statement. What we would say is, what is the earning potential of this business? If it were run properly, if the management succeeded in their plan to close the losing division, to do this, to do that, what could this company earn? What's a reasonable margin? What's a reasonable earnings level? And then say, is this stock cheap based on that? And what is our confidence that management can achieve that? So we don't care if a company has earnings or doesn't have earnings. In fact, we would prefer companies to be losing money, not hemorrhaging cash, because that really knocks the stock down and you get some wonderful opportunities.
It was just a question on copyrights, patents. How do you go valuing copyrights and patents? And as well, you talk a lot about management. How do you assign some sort of value to management as well? Do you look at the proven track record of management or what they can do in the future?
Well, I would say that as far as patents go and copyrights, we don't put a dollar value on these things. We have to figure out, I mentioned this X-ray company with this patented technology. We have to figure out what's the potential of this technology, whether they'll be able to, succeed in developing it or not. And I wouldn't put any tremendous value on it. As far as management goes, we're very old-fashioned. We like to sort of look them in the eye, meet them, talk to them, try to judge their credibility. One of the ways that we can get a leg up, I would say, on people who don't know anything and are just looking at numbers or looking at Yahoo Finance or watching TV or whatever, is to meet managements and try to make some assessment as to their competence, credibility, and things of that nature. And we don't seem to have any trouble, generally speaking, in getting a shot at talking to managements on a one-on-one basis. And it's an important thing. A lot of people don't want to do it, but we think we like to eyeball these people and make an assessment.